Hey, Honey. Her name actually is Honey. This is Honey, and this is her roadmap to success. I'm going to start off a little bit different. I'm going to leave this bag of treats with the Guardians. These are the treats I like using. Honey really likes them. They are chicken liver. Sit. And they have no preservatives in them. The reason they work so well is because they have no preservatives. So if you leave the bag open, they will be as hard as M&Ms, which we'll talk about in a minute, in about 30 minutes. So what I do every time I fold it over, burp all the air out, and then zip it. Don't refrigerate it. For dogs, when it comes to food, the most important thing is the smell, which is why these work so well. The temperature of the food is the second most important thing. Taste is actually a distant third. Yes, I've got a couple in my hand to keep her handy. So I'm going to leave these here. You can get these on Amazon, Petco, or PetSmart. And I like to have 3 levels of treats. This would be my highest level treat. I would have another meat treat for my mid-level treat, and that's my main treat for training. Then I have a cookie treat. Never use milk bones, pepperonis, and bacon strips all have known carcinogens in their ingredients, and they will give your dog cancer. Speaking of cancer, or lack of cancer, giving dogs broccoli florets and carrots will help ward off 2 types of cancers that our dogs are prevalent to, or common in dogs. So what I would do is I give my dogs carrots like bones, and then the dog will go get it and chew it up, and you'll have some interesting looking poop, but it'll help ward off that type of cancer. Now, speaking of poop, one of the things we went over was potty training. Now, she's a potty trained dog, but she has accidents in one of the kids' rooms that she sleeps with. So I talked to the Guardians about potentially changing when they feed her. Dogs' digestive tract are usually pretty consistent, about 8 hours. And so if we feed her maybe an hour later and then track it for a week, maybe she just can't hold it. Now, this is in conjunction with some cats coming into the house. And so I think that might be, she might be sending a message for that, but it might be just that we didn't have a good command word. So, because when I asked the Guardians, they don't have one, but she's pretty good at it. But it's nice to be able to say, do you have to potty? I like using fun command words because dogs are the only animal on the planet that can read human facial expression. So when you train her to do new tricks and commands, try to find a funny name. Now, we have 3 kids in the house. I would recommend we ask the kids to come up with the names, and each kid comes up with a suggestion, and then we discuss it at dinner, and mom and dad make the final decision. If I want my dog to do this, instead of saying lie down, I say crash. Most people laugh, and the dog feels good about itself because it made people happy. So we talked a little bit about potty training. So for potty training, what we do is the oldest son is going to take the dog out on a leash to a corner of the yard, as far away as the yard will allow. And he's going to stand there in the middle of it. You might want to get spray paint and just kind of do a half circle, from the fencing on the grass. So the circle should basically be, if I hold the 4-foot leash, the dog can go anywhere around with the person in the middle, and that's kind of the zone. So this is the potty zone. Now, I'm going to talk about how you can teach your dog to potty in a specific place in a minute, but the first thing you want to do is associate a word. So let's say I use the word business. So basically, if I go outside, and as soon as she starts to pee or poop, within that 3 seconds of her starting, I'm going to say the word business once. And don't say business! Say business. Say it in a normal tone of voice. Now, as soon as she gets done, I'm going to pop a treat in her mouth and say the word business a second time. Now, the first time I associate the action with the command word. Second time I'm associating the command word with the reward. And after a while, after we've done that enough repetition, they're all conflated together. So for the first week, we're going to take her out to that area, stand in the middle, and give her the opportunity to potty. Now, as soon as she potties, we say the words, and we do that for a week. Potentially longer, but we're going to sum it up like it, or we're going to talk about it like it's a week. So I do it for a week, and then the second week, the same son takes the dog out there. Now, he has treats in his mouth, and as you can tell, she's very interested. Or not in the mouth, in the hand. But this time, they're off leash. He's going to walk to the corner of the yard that she's supposed to potty in, and just stand there like this. If she's interested in treats, he just crosses arms and looks up and stands still and ignores her, and we wait for her to go potty. And as soon as she goes potty, if she goes in the zone, she gets 5 treats. Sit. Business. 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 I'm not going to do all 5 treats. Remember, anytime you give a treat, they should get the treat first, and they should hear the sound of the command word immediately after. Or if you're petting her, she sits, sit. I'm going to pet her first and then say sit immediately after. So basically, for a week, I go out to the zone on a leash, and in the second week, I go out off leash. And if she starts peeing anywhere but the zone, then I go back to the leash for another week. But eventually, she will start pottying, and if she goes in that zone, she gets 5 treats. If she goes anywhere else in the yard, she gets 1 treat. We're not going to chastise her, but there's a much more reward if you go in this designated area. And since we have a lot of kids playing in the backyard, it's helpful to have them obviously potty in one area. That's kind of I would recommend not practicing the shake because she's trying to paw for attention and demand the treats that I have in my hand. And a lot of dogs, shake is one of the first things we teach them, and I find it's often very problematic. So I would recommend not practicing the shake for a while. But if you're petting the dog and it puts its paw on top of you, it's not trying to shake, this can be a way of dominating you. So as soon as the paw comes up, I stop petting. And I reach again, the dog paws, I reach back. So eventually, by going back and forth, kind of like what we did in the video above this, that's kind of a demand for attention as well. We teach the dog that you can't tell the human what to do, and as soon as you try, the human loses all interest. And eventually, the dog will stop offering that, and will start offering other behaviors, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Okay, so because we have kids in the house, flap. This is the new command for sideways. I have come up with a technique and a way to get the kids, as long as they're not older than teenagers, to get the kids to actually do things that we want them to do. So for kids, they like candy. So what I do is I go get jars and I put each kid's name on each jar and let the kid decorate it with a baseball or Broncos logo or whatever they want, Patriots. And then basically I told the kids earlier that when we pet our dog, for kids, I tell kids petting our dog is how we say thank you. Sit. So we would ask the dog to sit. That was passive training. We'll talk about in a sec. But if I want to pet the dog, I tell the dog to sit. When it sits, I pet it under its chin. Getting an example opportunity to do. There we go. So eventually she stopped doing that pawing. So I pet under the chin. I say the word sit, and then I go tell mom and dad I petted with a purpose. Then mom and dad go grab an M&M and go put it in that child's jar. Throughout the day, every time the child pets with a purpose, the eldest child take the dog on a leash or anything else that's dog related. Don't do it for non-dog related stuff. Every client that adds in doing chores, it just ruins it. The kids stop being interested. This is a great way to motivate your dog. To motivate your kids to work better with your dog. So anytime that, the other thing they do is passive training, which is, I guess I'll just explain. So that's what I did earlier. Anytime your dog offers a desired behavior, I reward it. So when she SITs here, I'm going to show you again. So I'm waiting for her to do it on her own. I'm not telling her or luring her to do it. This is the absolute easiest way to train your dog, but it is the slowest way to train your dog because you just have to be observant. So as soon as she SITs, sit. As soon as she offered a behavior I like, I pet her and I say the word sit. I can also do this for come or for lay down. But I don't tell the dog to do it. I wait for the dog to do it. And I would not do it for that. So this way, the kids now are helping motivate the dog, or the kids have motivation to work with the dog and do the right thing with the dog. Now what we do is every day at dinner, we dump the M&Ms on the plate and the kids count them up. Whoever got the most M&Ms maybe gets a special reward, a special piece of cake or pie or whatever it is. A lot of my clients will actually then start doing something, start charting it. Maybe at the end of the week, whoever gets at the end of the week gets a special extra bigger privileges. Or at the end of a month, whoever gets the most, maybe if you get at least so many, you're going to invite 2 of your friends over, you're going to go see a movie, and then we're going to have pizza night at the house. Now the other kids are more incentivized to do this. Now, dogs go through repetition, consistency, and good timing. We have 3 kids in the house. If the kids are averaging 50 M&Ms a piece, which would be a lot, now the dog's practicing 150 desired actions and behaviors every day. That's going to help accelerate the dog's learning curve, as well as the dog's respect for the children in the house. Now, the video above is going to talk about how we stop a dog from jumping and jumping up and getting overexcited. One of her other problems is she's mouthy. She's not nipping, she's just mouthy, and I think a lot of it is she's overexcited. Now, what I do is anytime that if I'm petting the dog, and the dog, of course, she's not going to do it now, she's sniffing my boots. But anytime her teeth touch me, oh yeah, who's a good girl? I'm trying to get you a little bit worked up. Yes, yes. Ah! I freeze for a second after yelping like a little girl. And if she comes back, more boisterous than ever, a lot of times that means the dog needs a nap. But usually the dog will freeze just like she did. And this is even if it's accidental. Anytime her teeth touch you, you yelp like a little girl. We're teaching her that it hurts. Ah! And we want her to learn good dexterity of her mouth. So I can't put my mouth on anyone. As soon as I do, these humans are really frail. I just touch them with my teeth and they're yelping like a little girl. And eventually she'll learn not to do that behavior as well. Let me see, we talked about petting with a purpose, which is just asking the dog to do something before we pet it. If I want to pet the dog, sit. Then I can pet her for an hour after this, as long as I want. But I'm just going to make her do something before I pet her. Or if she comes up and nudges me, scratches me, and paws at me like she was, I'm going to ask her to do something, give her a counter order, sit, come, lay down, whatever it is. And as soon as she does something for me, she gets a reward. So if she tries to tell a human what to do, nothing happens anymore. But But if the human tells her something to do and she does it, she gets a reward. Now she has more motivation to want to listen. Sit. Now I'm giving her a treat, but I could also just as easily give affection. Now, if we come in, the family needs to come up with a watchword. So we come up and somebody's petting her when she's standing. We want a way of because we won't realize how often we're petting the dog without a purpose. So maybe I usually say paycheck, but since we have little kids, we might say something else. It's a fun word that the kids will relate to. And then if they say it, you have to immediately stop petting the dog. And then we tell the dog to sit or lie down, and we say, actually, Dad, I asked her to sit before you came in, and when you came down the stairs, she heard you walking, and she stood up, and I continued petting, and David said it's okay, which it is. Now, let's say the kid is not petting with a purpose. Well, or the kid's grabbing her by the ear or something that we don't want. We walk over to the jar and say, oh, I have to take an M&M away from that. Would you like to earn this back? Sit. And we plop it back in there. So we don't actually have to take away the M&Ms, but now we have the positive and negative to motivate the kids to do what we want them to do. I know I was just thinking of something else and I forgot, I lost my train of thought. It will come back to me. That's a power of positive thinking. Tell your brain to keep on looking. It'll pop back in my brain in a minute. I went over escalating consequences and ways to disagree with unwanted behaviors. I also went over rules and how to enforce the rules. One of the rules would be the dog is not allowed to be on this carpet if any child is eating here any food. One of the rules is the dog has to stay at least 7 feet away from anyone's eating. Same thing when we're cooking food in the kitchen. The dog's not allowed to be in the kitchen. We might want to put painter's tape down temporarily so we can see where those lines are. And you're going to use that third escalating consequence, marching at the dog, to move it back across the line. And then we're going to use the first escalating consequence, the hiss, if the dog is approaching it, looks like it's about to break the boundary. Also do setups. We talked about the dog likes to get close to us when we're eating dinner. She's not begging, but she's too close. One of the rules should be she should not be within 7 feet of any human who's eating. So if she likes to get too close during dinner, we might help her practice that. Set the table. Everything okay? Mm-hmm. Set the table. Have everybody sit in their normal places, and then heat up a piece of roast beef for about 30 seconds. And then come and serve a little section of that piece to everybody at the table. Just lunch meat, doesn't have to be a lot. And we practice cutting it up. And if she tries to break the line, whoever's closest gets up and moves towards her to block her and move her back across the boundary. After a while, she'll sit or lie down. She did really good with this exercise. And once she's sitting or lying down and respecting it, then we put the roast beef away, then we serve our real meal. We just did a practice run. Now the dog knows the behavior we want because we broke it down into small individual steps and helped her practice each step at a time. And only once she knew how to do it, did we actually make it the real world situation. So I still have treats, but she's kind of realizing that she can't demand and get them from me. Let me see, what else? Other rules. You have not being allowed in the furniture, which is kind of already a rule, but she does it at night. So we might get tinfoil, and I told the guardians a trick for tinfoil for the couch. Just fold it up and put it underneath the couch when you're actually there during the day. I'd also like to get this. I remembered. I'd like to get a dog bed in every room that she's in. Now, I prefer memory foam dog beds, the ones that have a foam in it, so it's a cushion, not like a blanket or like a duvet cover that'll have rolls in it. What I want to do is the way that I teach a dog to go on the dog bed is I toss a treat on it. If the dog bed's there, let's say it's Venice. I would say Venice after the dog lifted up off their mouth. Then they go off the dog bed, and then I toss another one on. And as soon as she licks it up, Venice. Now I do this, I toss about 5 or 10 treats this way. And then the next thing I do is I stop tossing and wait for the dog to lose interest, and then I leave a treat right on the middle of the dog bed. Now this is why I like ones that are not like a duvet cover, so we can toss it and the dog sees it clearly. Now dogs are colorblind, so make sure it's a light color, like a light cream or a white. The other reason that I like the ones that are memory foam is because you can unzip them and wash the shell, which you can't really do for the duvet sort of cover ones. And just a square one or a rectangular one doesn't have to have a back. Dogs don't lean against their back. And like I said, a light color. Groupon is, I found, the best place to get them, about 35, 40 bucks. And then basically, so the first way I do it is I toss. The second way I do it is I leave it there, and I don't point out. A lot of people are like, here's the treats, come and get the treats, they're right here. That's like doing her homework for her. Instead, we leave one there, and these have, again, a tremendous smell. Then we just sit on the couch, and we watch a little TV, and we kind of watch out of the corner of our eye. As soon as the dog comes over and licks it up, we would say Venice, or whatever the word is for the dog bed. Again, fun command word. If we have multiple dog beds, like we have one here, we want it down in the basement, each dog bed should have its own designation. That way I can tell the dog to move here or move there, and the dog understands what we want. So the third way, lie down. The third way I do it is I lure the dog onto the dog bed and put it in a sit or lie down and pop the treat in their mouth, and I would say Venice or whatever the word is. Now these are 3 ways to entice the dog to go there. After a while, the dog will start going there on its own. When it does, and let's say the dog bed's here and she came and laid there, we would come over, we would just say the word Venice. You gotta hold up right there, buddy, we're filming. The second way so if we have a treat, we can give the dog a treat for doing it, but the idea is we want to create that association. And then the last thing about the dog beds, because we have kids, I've read a lot of case studies about dogs that are like Honey. They're beautiful dogs that are very happy and not at all aggressive, but get overheated, and the kids won't allow the dog to the dog tries to move away, hides in the shrubs or under a bench, and they pull the dog back out, and the dog eventually gets overheated to the point where it's going to be dangerous, so they nip the child to say, leave me alone, because the child wasn't listening. A lot of times kids just like to play and have fun. So one of the rules that I have is the dog bed should be base for the dog. Anytime the dog is on the dog bed, the kids are not allowed to interact with the dog or pull the dog off or go onto the dog bed. We want the dog to feel empowered, so if I don't know what to do, I have a safe place I can go to. And just tell the kids it's like a game of tag. If she's there, she's on base. Oh, you touched her when she's on base? I have to take away all of your M&Ms. Maybe you do that once or twice. That's a very strong deterrent, but we really don't want her to get blamed because maybe a neighbor kid that's visiting keeps on engaging with her when it's 90 degrees in Nebraska and she's overheated and she needs a break. Let me see. Walk through the dog instead of walking around. If you walk around the dog, you're telling the dog it's more important that you're burning more energy so the dog doesn't have to. Now, if she's sitting, laying down, and I kick her and say, wake up, that's just being a jerk. Don't ever kick a dog, but nudge her or whatever. But if she's standing and I walk around her, that tells her she's more important. So instead, I walk through her. And eventually, I want the dog to learn when a human comes, I need to defer and get out of the human's way and let the human pass first because they have more authority than me. One of the things she likes to do is race up and down the stairs. Dogs like being first. Whoever's in front is the leader. Well, if I start walking up the stairs, and it's bedtime, and she races up the stairs ahead of me, and I continue following her, I'm validating her thought that I'm the follower. So as I start going up the stairs, as soon as she passes me, I turn and go and sit back downstairs. I don't say no. Just like the first video that we have on this write-up, as soon as she does the thing I don't want, I stop being interested. In this case, of going upstairs. I sit down, and she goes up there, and she's like, oh, what are we doing now? Where did everyone go? And then she comes back down the stairs, and I thought we were going upstairs. Then as soon as she's calm, we try it again. And you might have to go up and stop going up the stairs several times, but eventually she will stop moving in front of you. Other rules that we went over, the dog has to sit before it goes in or out of a door. I'm going to go to the door, and I'm going to say sit one time. And say it, don't ask it. If she doesn't sit, I will turn, within about 3 seconds, I walk away, turn on the TV, sit at the table, pull out my phone, read an email or magazine, whatever it is. Wait 1 minute. Tell Siri to give you a 60-second timer. Then after 1 minute, go back to the door and tell her, again, sit and tell her don't ask. As soon as she sits, I open the door. But let's say I go to the door the second time, she doesn't sit. This time I walk away for 2 minutes. Next time for 4 minutes. Next time for 8 minutes. I double the length of time each time. Make sure you start with this, passive training. Make sure you start this with whatever direction is motivating for her. If she already wants to be outside and you say sit for her to come in and she's already out, sit. She's like, whatever, I already got what I want. So if she wants to go outside, the best time to start it was when she's inside. Yes. Woo! And then I can go back to petting her. Now I want to go back to petting her preferably so that she gets another opportunity to do it the right way. But this way she'll learn I just can't put my mouth on anyone because she's like the anti-aggressive dog. She's a very happy dog. I think she just gets so excited she gets mouthy. And just like us, when we're overexcited or an unbalanced state of mind, that's when we're going to make most mistakes. That's why it's important to understand that anything your dog is doing when you pet it is what you're reinforcing, including fear, excitement, anxiety, stress. And so if your dog is stressed, you can touch it and let it know I'm here with you. And they associate love with touch. But don't ever pet it while it's worked up. Now also, when a dog feels good about itself, his nose is parallel to the ground or tilted upward, insecure dogs look down. Never pat a dog on top of the head. You can caress and you can scratch, they like that. But patting typically creates a downward nose orientation, which is what insecure dogs do. Let me see, what else? Other rules, not being allowed in the kitchen when we're preparing food, not being allowed within 7 feet of anybody who's eating, sitting at the door. The dog likes getting in the cat litter box. So one of the things that people do is they kind of hide it from the dog, and that makes it almost more forbidden fruit. Instead, what I would do is I'd put the litter box when it's clean right here in the middle of the living room when we're watching a movie. And anytime she shows interest and comes within 3 feet of it, I would do the hiss. If she continues, I would stand up. If I have to, I march at her. And eventually she'll like walk around it, keeping a good boundary. You're teaching her this is to be left alone. But for dogs, scat eating is pretty normal. So there's snacks in there. Why can't I go in there is what Honey thinks. So we have to help her understand, nope, that grosses us out and we don't want to do that. Same thing with the trash or anything else. If she's chewing shoes or anything else, we put it in the middle of the room and give her opportunity to do it while we can observe and help her practice. And then once we're done practicing, we take that item away so we don't give her an opportunity to practice doing the wrong thing. Now, she's also kind of bananas on the walk for one of the guardians. And so I gave her a martingale collar and showed her how to apply the special twist the leash. Remember, when you're walking with the dog, don't let the dog walk out the door ahead of you. Again, whoever's in front is the leader. Also, give her a right side or left side. Right now, the guardian kind of moves it around based on, I think, traffic or if she's got a stroller or whatever. I find it's best, especially initially when you're teaching a dog, to make it always walk on the right or always walk on the left. So this is my place in the formation. So everybody should walk around, I believe, on the right is what she wanted. Now, when we're walking, we're going to keep the leash short but not tense. Now, the martingale is not going to actually stop her from pulling, but it's going to give the humans a lot more control. The alignment for this is her shoulder should be aligned with my hip. If the dog's chest exceeds my torso, it's starting to pull ahead. And the correction for the martingale is a quick pop up and then relax it down immediately. I mean, this is the timing. I mean, it should be that fast. That's why we keep it a short leash, but never a tense leash. Now, if the dog lags from behind, we never pull. We just let our arm go limp like spaghetti, and we keep walking, and eventually the tensional line will be created by the dog, and then it will come along with us. And then every time the dog starts to move in front of us, we pop up really quick like that and immediately go down. Don't do it slow and don't do it a pull. Pop, and then you want to take that tension off the leash right away before the dog has an opportunity to activate its opposition reflex. And also, you know, what's going on in your environment will matter. You know, if your dog is, for the person who the dog really pulls the leash for, she might want to take the dog outside and play fetch, 10 or 15, 20 fetches, come inside, let the dog recover, and then put the martingale on and take it for the leash, take it for a walk. So we burn off the excess energy, we put the dog in a position to succeed, which is something I like to do a lot of. I also wanted the guardians to start an exercise journal. Remember, we can use the laser, but fetch is probably going to be the primary way to burn her energy. Now, if you forget, if you go to, you can't go to godoggo.com, but go, just do a Google search. There's a machine that will let your dog play fetch with itself. If you want to teach her how to do that, we could probably teach you that in the daycare training, because I think she's going to actually do some training with us to walk with a loose leash. Right now, we have the martingale just to kind of get her through the spring. But start an exercise journal. Just get an assignment notebook or piece of paper. Write down the dog's the date at the top, and then write 41 fetches at 9 a.m. And remember, anytime she comes up, she's really boisterous or excitable, independent of people coming around. If she's just getting mischievous, take her outside and play fetch for 15, 20, 30 fetches, and then bring her back inside. Depleting the excess energy solves a lot of dog problems, nuisance problems like that. But throughout the day, each time you do that, you write down the number of fetches or how long the walk was, or another option would be to bounce the ball down the stairs. I wouldn't do it for these stairs because these are wooden and she might slip and we don't want her to blow out her knee, but the carpeted downstairs. And so she brings it up to you, gives it to you, and you're going to play fetch and count the number of up and down the stairs. So stair fetch, yard fetch, walk, whatever it is. And then at the end of the day, give it assign the day grade. How was Honey's behavior that day? That was like a C+. Okay, now the next day, we're going to vary it up and we're going to add in some additional fetches or add the quantity of fetches. Wow, that was a B-. And so we keep on playing with the values until eventually we find that was an A+ day. Now we know the exercise we need to give Honey to put her in a position to succeed. And then we start recreating that. Now, once she gets a little bit older, once she gets about 3, the energy starts to kind of slow down a little bit. We won't need to get her as much exercise. But if we get that, Go Dog Go during the warm weather months, once we teach her how to do it, she can go outside and play fetch by herself, and that's awesome. This is a sign of a good session here at Doggone Problems. The subject is racked out. We made her use a muscle she doesn't use very often, her brain. All right, well, if the guardians have any questions, I want you to please call or text us. Our goal is always to make you feel, we always want to make friends and talk dog, but we want people to feel like that I have an expert I can go back to anytime I have a question. And please text me sooner rather than later. The longer you wait, sometimes the problem gets more and more ingrained and it takes longer to work. If you get it really easy to me right away, usually it's a much quicker fix. All right, well, this is Honey, and this is Honey's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.